Oh, hello there. I didn't see you. I'm Craig from Iron Horse Railways, and you're watching The Monday Club.
It's Monday, it's 7th, and the Bronx are fueled. It's time for The Monday Club, featuring your host, Jennifer Kirk, with the help of Stubborn Monkey and a wizard called Gandalf. Featuring the sounds of the Glass of Wheat Symphony Orchestra and the musical stylings of Gordon, the Music Maestro. Let's get ready to Loco!
Exclusive Monday Club William Loud & Sons Palbrick Wagon is now available from Rails of Sheffield. Order yours now with confidence. Eventually she'll turn the sound up. Big hello to you, it's so great to see you and I hope I find you well. Just give me the V's now. So we've got Patrick Ling, Roger Wollstonehome, Jerry BVR, Trains Kits etc, Francis Alexandra, Secret Anorak, who says whoop whoop. Dave Holloway, evening all, evening to you. Peter Jackson, Cheadle Heath, Leslie Gilpin Railways, Richard Swiderski says we are go. Hi Jenny, Zoe and Simon. Absolutely, we have got the acclaimed author Simon A.C. Martin will be here from past. We've got a full interview. He's got a new book coming out about Sir Nigel Gresley. He is of course already the leading world authority on Edward Thompson, and this is the obvious follow-up to go to the previous CME of the London and North Eastern Railway, and it's really interesting, I guess, to be able to contrast the two. Quite often regarded as being one of the greatest mechanical engineers of all time, certainly for the LNER, for the Eastern region, and a man behind so many great designs. So we're going to be catching up with Simon A.C. Martin and talking through all of that, plus some of his previous work, including the Great British Railway Stories and his TV experiences, where he's been hanging out with me.
Well, he had the misfortune of hanging out with ye.
He did actually on 2 different series. So a big hello to James Petts, Krista Duke, Ben Cooper says TARDIS right away. There's no stopping you guys.
It's right on the screen.
Well, I don't know. It's like it's a small screen up here. I'd struggle to see that. Jennifer Horton and Gordon Aitken has says 13 months a channel member. How time flies. So welcome to the 13 months.
Well done.
Yeah, it does fly by, doesn't it? James Pett says Simon A.C. Martin is a very good speaker. He gave a lecture to the Mother Railway Club earlier this year. Very interesting. We've got the big fella. Evening, folks. Hope everyone okay. Looking forward to tonight's discussion. Flymo Chairman 1, Ralph Giles, Simon Train's Mother Railway Showcase, Ruben Ashwell, Worthington Mother Railway, Partick Hill Station, David Simpson, Secret Anorak, Francis Alexander, Stephen Turner, Dave Swindon Junction, Malcolm Moore says all these bank holidays confuse me. I wasn't late last week, I forgot completely. Well, actually, we've just started now.
And Monday Club Hour is never late, Toto Wagons, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
Thanks, Gandalf.
You're welcome.
So we've got Gandalf in, and Alan Reynolds at Buckland Junction, you made it to the start, says back in the loft while watching. Excellent. Patrick Ling asks, what's in the news? Well, the all-new Acura Scale Siphon Gs are out. You will see circulating on the outermost track one of the Acura Scale Siphon Gs in the really quite eye-catching First World War ambulance livery. And I don't know if we do... Yeah, actually, that's the right one, actually. I think we'll catch up with it. So look out for it coming around behind Miles Beaver. It's an amazing model. But if you want to know more about the Acura...
It's an amazing model, but...
Yes, sorry, absolutely. You can't take her anywhere unless you take her back to apologise. But definitely, we've got a full video on that coming out on Friday. And in terms of other news, we have got, I don't know actually, I've been concentrating on all things Gresley. So as you can see on the turntable area, we've had a complete change of motive power around here.
Oh my goodness.
So what you're seeing, let's have a look. What have we got? We've got Sir Nigel Gresley, appropriately, on the turntable in BR Experimental Blue. I thought that was the most appropriate A4 to represent the whole of the A4 class. And then we've got J50, K3, V2, A3, J39, B17. And well, actually, there's quite a lot of Gresley designed items available ready to run. In terms of ready-to-run provision of their designs, Gresley actually does really quite well. Other ones you can also get, the V1 and the V3 are available, and also there's the N2 as well. Although
It's
I
fine.
don't have.
Jen, will you please just leave it?
Okay.
I say no.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was trying to turn it back. You can't help some people, can you?
I'll be going and finishing your wedding stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can do that.
Hello to Southern Train Girl. Naive Gaze is only 27 likes. Don't forget to tickle that like button and also share the stream. It's a great way to let other people know that we're here, we're live, we're dangerous, and it is your online model railway
3
club.
minutes, Shady.
3 minutes till what?
Till we can phone.
Ah, right.
phone a friend.
Daypol have announced the GWR 28XX. Thank you, AD Pullen, for reminding me about that. Yes, they did an announcement of that at the event they were at over the weekend. And certainly, I do happen to have one of the older Hornby models, and it'll be interesting to see what Daypol do with the model. Certainly, I think they need to pull something really quite spectacular out of the hat, and I believe that they will do. So, really interesting. Harry Sedgwick says, just like BR Express Blue in the 1950s. I've got quite a few locomotives built up comparatively quickly in the Express Blue. Sir Nigel Gresley, obviously there on the turntable, and the A3 is, let's have a look, which one is it? Prince Palatine. Or is it Prince Palatinate? No, it's Prince Palatine. I don't know who Prince Palatine was. He sounds like something out of a Star Wars film, doesn't he?
That's Palpatine.
Yes. Zoe Kirk Robinson says, I like to gronk it.
I like to gronk it.
Have you tickled
I
the...
have.
Yeah, okay. Good.
I like to gronk it.
Shaky Hands Shed Model Railways, hi to you. Route 7 Railway Valleys 56XX. Rick Morley says, what's the beverage of choice, please? Well, we've been feeling quite under the weather of late. So we've got a can of Monster, aka Whoopass. Opened a can of Whoopass.
Or when we're on the Daily Mail website with our video, a kind of beep.
Yeah, they beeped us out. Weird that. Chris Eden Green, big hello to you. Great to see you in. Hope you are well. Says Gresley was a great designer, but even he acknowledged that a lot was owed to Churchwood. Interesting actually, because I don't want to go into too much depth because we'll be talking a lot about this with Simon A.C. Martin when he's on in a
1
few
minute.
minutes. Well, we're gonna.
I'll send them the call in a couple of
Yeah,
seconds.
yeah. Won't it start like everybody will hear the?
Dum, dum, dum,
Yeah.
dum, dum, dum.
Prince Palatine was, as usual, a racehorse. Valleys 56XX. I had wondered. Thank you for letting me know. And also, Russell Benter reminds us the Sonic Models ferry van. Unexpected duplication in the bagging area, but the reason behind this is because obviously some of the best secrets in the world appear to be what manufacturers are making. Nobody tells me anything, and it turns out nobody tells each other anything. So Rapido brought out their ferry vans, and Sonic Models were pretty much at the point of delivery when the Rapido models landed. And what they've done is they've held back sale until the Rapido models have sold through. But it does mean that there's now another bunch of ferry vans, and it will be interesting to compare these to the Rapido versions. Yeah, going back to Gresley, I have to say, I mean, actually, no. Let's leave that for the interview.
Let's leave it for
because otherwise, I'll discuss everything, and then I'll have nothing
and
to
then you'll
ask
phone
Simon.
Simon and go,
Yeah,
hi,
Simon will go.
how was your weekend?
And Simon will come on and go, I think you've got all that right. So, just in case my information...
Or more likely, I think you got all that wrong, and here's why.
Oh, that's what I meant. Yeah, I'd never get anything knowingly right. Secret Anorak says, I used to live in a house named the Mallard. I thought the previous owner was into ducks, to be honest, until I became educated in the ways of the railway.
Lots of people said that they disapproved the Daily Mail. And James Pett says, you were on the Daily Mail website. Yeah, that was that time that I was getting trolled.
Yeah, can we just say, they didn't have permission to use the video. They just lifted it from YouTube.
No, they did. They asked if they could...
Yeah, but they didn't wait for permission. They said, oh, can we use it? And did anyway.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Jennifer Horton, we will bring up Edward Thompson. Simon A.C. Martin is, of course, the leading global expert on Edward Thompson.
Jen, what are you the leading global expert on?
Waffling. James Pett says, I approve of mallards. I think this looks like Quacky Ducky, but... Ben Cooper says, didn't Bugatti work with Sir Nigel Gresley for the streamline of the cars?
Nice.
I must ask about that. And of course, if you have any questions, sensible questions, not things like, what's your favourite food?
Or where do babies come from? I'll tell you when you're older.
Yeah. Then do leave them in the chat. We will try and pick them out and ask them. But it'd be really interesting because quite often you, the viewers, have burning questions that may get overlooked by the two chatty types in the interview. But, right, so the chat has moved screens. And yes, James Hardy, Peppercorn was the guy after Thompson. So we've got Sarah Davis, big hello to you. And a big thank you to Sarah Davis, who very kindly sent, an item to as a present to the Cupboard Monkey.
Yes.
Which has been received with thanks. So thank you so much for that. A double-decker, I think it was a Leyland Atlantean, was it? A double-decker bus in
It's
Endgame.
the type of bus that used to take me to school, only it's in yellow instead of red.
Probably a Leyland Atlantean. I remember when all buses were Leyland Atlantean, and then suddenly Leyland were no more. D.L. Warren says the streamlining on the A4 was inspired in part by Ettore Bugatti.
Shall we?
Yes, we shall. So if you want to...
Right, yeah.
So,
Don thy earpieces of ultimate power.
So I'm going to, in order to be able to hear Simon, I'm going to don the earmuffs of ultimate peril. Let me see there. I'm going to have these on slightly DJ style because otherwise I can't hear the volume of my own voice. So if I look like I have failed in the school of wearing headphones,
okay.
that
Ladies
is the
and
reason
gentlemen,
why.
you may hear this sound.
Actually, can you turn up my sound? Because you won't get any howler. So, hello. Can you hear me, Simon? I'm just going to press the appropriate button.
Yeah.
So that's that one. So if you just want to check that that's come up okay. Yeah, I think we're on screen. How are you doing? Simon A.C. Martin. Do we pronounce the A.C.? I've always wondered this because you obviously, it's your signature full name. But is it just Simon Martin or Simon A.C. Martin? Which one do you prefer?
So I've always preferred Simon A.C. Martin because there's an awful lot of Simon Martins. It's always been my way of kind of differentiating myself.
So it's standing out in the crowd. Absolutely, yeah. And it's something, especially with authors, you need that name that's unique to you. Otherwise, it's very easy, as you say, to be lost behind anybody else with that name. Can I just ask you to turn me up a little bit so I can hear a bit better? So just a little bit of volume on me. Not so loud. Gosh, I'm blasting my earlugs off. So you've got a new book coming out. And this is a follow-up to the Edward Thomas book that you did. Sorry, Edward Thompson book that you did, who was the wartime CME of the LNER. But his predecessor, I think for a lot of people, much more famous. And I think if for pretty much anybody in the railway world, if you asked to name a famous CME, Sir Nigel Gresley is probably going to be the one that they talk about, with some very iconic designs, and certainly in terms of capturing the aesthetic mood of the 20s and more so the 30s, with that Art Deco style, with the streamlining. It was very much up there. So I've got my notes. I have been having a quick look through.
Can I just ask one thing, Jen?
Yes.
Have you let him speak yet?
I think I have. Sorry, I'm very wordy. Do feel free.
We've worked together on 2 TV shows, and if we ever got a word in edgeways, it was lovely. But Jen's really good at that. That's her job. Let her do it.
Yeah, it's I must be. See, I've done talk radio in the past, and you get used to just talking, and sometimes it's very easy to forget to let the other person get their word in edgeways. But one of the interesting things, actually, I hadn't realised, but when I was flicking through your new book, Sir Nigel Gresley actually trained at the start. He was more of an LMS man, because he served an apprenticeship with the London and North Western Railway, and then moved to the Lancashire and Yorkshire before he made the move to the Great Northern Railway, where perhaps he became most famous. And do you feel that influenced a lot of his later designs?
In short, no. Well, let's put it another way. So he was definitely from the outset something of a Northwestern and then a Yorkshire. Bearing in mind, of course, that his actual heritage was he was born in Edinburgh. His family was Scottish and English, and they lived all over the country, but mostly in the north of England. And then he was in the southern part, which was living in and around London, actually, when he was working for the LNER. But everything that he saw when he was working for London North Western Railway, and everything that he then did at the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway, informed, I think, his thinking when he went onto the Great Northern Railway. And a lot of it was actually what he didn't want to do. And it's quite obvious, actually, because you get on the LNWR, you've got things like the experiments, the precedents, and they're wonderful machines, not particularly well thought of by enthusiasts, and I think that point of view's got to change. But Gresley, in his early days, was actually more in the Ivert mould, and I think very much Henry Ivert's influence in him, and actually John Aspel as well, in terms of a simpler approach to engineering, can be seen very, very clearly in his earliest designs. When you look at, for example, the J6 is just a direct move forward of Ivert's J5 locomotive. When you look at his first mogul, the K1s, which then became the K2s, he's applied outside Walsham's valve gear, which looks more complicated, but actually it's a really good, solid valve gear setup. And all he's done is actually stretched the proportions and changed the wheelbase arrangement of things that are really Ivert in design. And it's not until we get to, for example, the K3s, which is really where Gresley's thinking starts to take off in a big way, along with his 280 freight engines, that we see that Gresley actually has his own ideas. And I think, the best engineers actually take a lot of the knowledge, not in what is necessarily successful, but what's actually maybe not as successful, and how not to apply it to their own work.
So it's almost a case that his apprenticeships with the London and North Western Railway and the Lancashire and Yorkshire showed him a lot of ways where he thought, I can do better than that. There must be a better way than that. So in effect, it gave him very much a grounding in that kind of thing. And am I right in thinking that he was very much more of a practical person? He preferred to learn by doing the job, rather than by going to textbook learning, so to speak. So he was a very practical, hands-on kind of guy.
I think we've got to be careful with that, because there's always a fear, for me anyway, that sometimes we can make people seem maybe less educated, but they're not, or that they weren't as academic, which in Gresley's case, he won awards while he was at school. But he went and did practical apprenticeships in order to gain the experience on the front line, actually see what was happening on a working railway. And that's really important. That's why when he was actually head of the LNER, when he was the chief mechanical engineer, he really pushed for apprenticeships. He really pushed the premium apprentices working directly for him to learn from him. He used his technical assistants and he taught them, and he was really big on people going through to do their qualifications, but also to get that hands-on practical experience of being in a railway workshop. And you're absolutely right, Jen. You're absolutely on the money. He valued that immensely.
And one of the things that he did bring very much to the railway scene was there was a lot of Pacifics. The Pacific wheel arrangement seemed to be something that he very much favoured, whereas before the days that he became the CME at the Great Northern Railway, it was very much geared towards the Atlantic or the 440 type wheel arrangements. And he seems to have been very forward thinking in seeing what Vincent Raven did with the original A2s and go, you know, they're not, there's problems, but I can see what he was trying for. And it's in some respects, my reading of it was, it's like he could see what needed improving to make it work. And in many ways, you could say he did.
So we need to be careful, because actually the work on a Pacific locomotive for the Great Northern Railway started in 1915. So the original developments around when the Great Western Railway had their first Pacific, the Great Bear. And you had the K4s in America, the Pennsylvania K4s, who were running really good work, like performances in excess of anything that was really known at that time. But Gresley's design, his Pacific, that eventually became Great Northern of 1922, his development was ahead of Sir Vincent Raven. Raven actually was the last of the 3 CMEs who was building Pacifics to pick it up, but he picked Gresley to the post just about with his 2 Raven Pacifics. They were on the drawing board for a very short period of time. Raven's Pacifics are actually really a success story in reacting to what the other railway is doing and producing something that's actually workable. But Gresley didn't write them off, and I think that's really interesting. When he became CME, you've got to unite the Great Northern Railway, which was the second largest of the big railways involved in the London North Eastern Railway, the North Eastern Railway, which was technically the largest, with the largest amount of rolling stock, and then, of course, the Great Central Railway, and then you've got the Great Eastern Railway, which is sort of a poor relation, the fourth one, and then lots of little railways, including some of the Scottish lines. But Gresley was actually quite clever, and in his programme of works, in building new locomotives for the LNER, he picked out Great Central designs, he picked out North Eastern Railway designs, he picked out Great Eastern and Great Northern Railway designs, some of which were his own, some of which were Raven, Robinson and Hill's. So he actually unified the railway very cleverly, because he was still building things that were recognisable to all of those different regions. And he built 4 more Raven Pacifics. Right. And it's astonishing. I think they had, well, no, it was 4 total, I think. I haven't got my notes in front of me. But the point is that he built more of them. He applied some Gresley accoutrements, such as the Cartazzi, just under the cab, which eliminated the issues that the original Raven Pacific had, which was having the radial truck just underneath the ashband, which, frankly, Raven should have seen and had not fitted in the first place. I think you're right. He was well ahead of his time, well ahead of his time on so many different things. But he was always looking around him. He was always looking at what everyone else was doing. What are the trends of the time? And he was looking not just in railways, but in general engineering. And that's how we get to, for example, the Hush Hush in 1929, because he notices the Art Deco movement, he recognises it, he embraces it, he thinks about streamlining, he thinks about scientific advancement. Actually, he is, for me, one of the few railway engineers who's not just a locomotive engineer. He's actually really a systems engineer, one of the first systems engineers, because he's not just building and designing locomotives, he's also talking about how the rolling stock interacts, how the signalling interacts, infrastructure, including electrification.
I mean, some of the other things that he was responsible for were things like the Gresley teak coaches, very iconic rolling stock, first for the Great Northern Railway, but then later on continued to be built under the London and North Eastern Railway. And some of the things that he was doing was, for example, articulation, to reduce the amount of dead weight, to make it so that there's much more weight in a train that is filled by fare-paying passengers rather than the rolling stock itself. And he also seemed to very much embrace streamlining, more so than any of the other railways. And it feels, with especially the likes of the Great Western Railway, that they treated it as a fad. And when you see a streamlined king, it looks like somebody's done it like, well, if you're making me do it, oh, there we go. But he was very much keen on reducing things like drag, with the coaches closer together with shrouds, so that you didn't have these kind of vacuums with the skirts at the bottom. And how much was that about the aesthetic? Obviously Art Deco was big at the time, and how much of it was practical efficiency?
I'm going to tell you this now, from the development of the W1 in 1929 all the way through to the coronation with the observation coach and the A4 on the front. It was all scientific. Very little of it was actually aesthetically driven, aside from perhaps the livery,
right?
On both the Silver Jubilee and the coronation and the A4s.
Yeah.
You have to remember that he was working alongside people from the National Physics Laboratory.
Yeah.
And Frederick Johansen, for example, who's one of their leading lights in the late 1920s, early 1930s. So he's working with Gresley over at the LNER, and then he's working with Stanier over at the LNS, and he's working with the Southern Railway, which at the time I think was Monsell. And they were all working on individual proposals and individual changes, and they were basically taking wooden models and throwing chalk over them into a wind tunnel. But the first of these was the W1, for which the work really started in 1927. They started really developing the W1 way ahead of anyone else. I cannot find an earlier, genuinely, truly, scientifically designed streamlined locomotive than Gresley's W1. And actually, we should put that here. The W1 is the first British streamlined locomotive, by far.
And also that a very revolutionary boiler design as well. He wasn't afraid to try something very different with the Yarrow very high pressure marine type boiler. It was something that hadn't really been done before. And to me, he was very able to break from the mould. It wasn't a case of, but we've always done things like this. And it's interesting that, for example, a lot of the locomotive designs that came before him that were things like Atlantics, but he only introduced one Atlantic, the C9, and he was very much at the forefront of moving forward, looking at the American designs for the Mogul with the Baldwins that were imported, and doing things very differently. But at the point that the railway grouping came along, he was the CME at the Great Northern Railway, but was then suddenly faced with the amalgamation of the LNER and effectively having to apply for his own job again. And
it wasn't much of an application, though. If we're being honest, Jen, I think everyone knew, including Robinson, who was being supported by his own chairman on the Great Central.
Yeah, Lord Farrington was pushing for Robinson.
Yeah, but everyone knew it was going to be Gresley, I think. It was pretty obvious. What is it? Raven and Robinson were both in their mid-60s.
It's about 66 for Robinson, which was a year after the enforced retirement age. So even though he had Lord Farrington pushing him to be the CME, he was technically a year past the compulsory retirement age. And then there was two others who were going to retire anyway, and then you had other CMEs who had, like the Glasgow and South Western Rail, is it Haywood? Who'd only done one loco design.
Haywood. Was he on the Great North of Scotland Railway?
Yes, I knew it was one of the Scottish ones. And I think it's the D40 was his only loco design. So effectively...
Well, that was Pickersgill, really.
Absolutely, yeah.
He introduced a variation on it, but it's a Pickersgill design, really. I think it's very clear. Gresley was the man at the moment. He was producing really quite wonderful locomotives, Great Northern Railway, the K3 and then the Pacific. You had the N2, you had the O2, you had so many different designs that actually really showed a way forward. And I think what was really interesting about Gresley is that in his early years, you could say he was actually a little bit more conservative because he produced 2 classes of 060 tender engine, which were effectively just improved versions of his J6s. But it's that little bit of creeping improvement in every aspect of his design, where we get to the 1930s. And in answer to one of the people in your chat, because I've just noticed the question that popped up about, is an A4 just a streamlined A3? The answer to that is no. The A4 is so much more complicated than that. I go into this in the book quite a lot, but actually, the Pacific arrangement, no doubt, that comes from the A3. And the kind of the boiler size and shape and the overall proportions of the A4 locomotive, they're all derived from the A3. But where it gets clever, it's actually building on all the development that we've seen with the original W1, with the P2s. You look at the A4, and actually, if you put the W1 as built and then the A4 side by side, you actually see where they lifted certain aspects of the streamlining from the W1 to incorporate into the A4. In particular, the single chimney. I think it's, you know, we talk about Gresley as this man, this great man, but he was scientifically minded, and in every single iteration of his designs, you see an improvement. So, for example, in the A4s, you've got streamlining of air passages, you've got streamlining of the outer casing, but it's not just that. You've got slightly different materials are used. You've got them realizing that actually you're not just having to streamline the locomotive, you've got to streamline the whole train to match with it as well.
Absolutely,
to make that high-speed railway.
Absolutely. One of the things that surprised me is that whilst there's this focus on the big express locomotives, things like the A3s, the A4s, he only designed one 060 shunting locomotive, the J50. Well, technically the J50, J51, but they're pretty much the same thing. And you know, a very successful locomotive. But was it a case that there were so many other designs that were already in service? Was there just not a need for these small shunting locomotives, or was it a case that the J50 was so successful there was no need to actually do anything else?
Well, I think off the top of my head there were 110 of them, so they were by no means a small class, but they were maybe rather more spread out across the network where they were needed. In the West Riding and then over in London, some of them actually getting pretty far south and going over Blackfriars flyover into Hither Green. You know, these lovely tank engines supplemented a lot of the really robust, powerful 060s. And if we're being really truly honest with ourselves, the J50 was again a development of locomotives that he had seen before. But he really, you know, you look at that J50 and he nailed the design, frankly, for the LNER. And that's why Thompson actually wanted to build more of them during the Second World War. Not just wanting both of them, wanting to build diesel shunters by the 1940s, but they wanted more of the J50s. They really were just a fantastic design. And that's borne out, actually, by the statistics I collated for the book, which showed that they were one of the best performing 060 tank engines in the whole of the United Kingdom.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I suppose the only other one that I guess is a nod that towards where he saw a design that was good and fit for purpose, he wasn't afraid to keep building them. The J72 was also perpetuated with a number of further batches being made. But certainly, I mean, the J50, it's a tragedy that none survive, because it is, it's like the ultimate in terms of utility, in terms of getting the best tractive effort with the water in the tanks, providing that additional adhesive weight over the driving wheels, but also the way it fits so perfectly within the loading gauge.
Well, there's a question I've just spotted that's come up from Jennifer Horton about how much the work was actually Gresley's. That's a really good question to ask. And I'm going to be really direct. Pretty much all of it that's accredited to Gresley is because Gresley is involved. And she's right to bring that up because we have misconceptions about how chief mechanical engineers, how mechanical engineers actually organise their staff and what actually gets done. And in Gresley's case, as I say in the book, you've got people like Bert Spencer, Norman Newson, you've got Frederick Johansen at the National Physics Laboratory, you've got Edward Thompson and Oliver Bullion, two men he hired specifically to join him at the Great Northern Railway in order to support his work. You've got all of these knowledgeable men doing all of these different roles who actually add to his overall vision. So you're absolutely right to ask that question, and it's a really good question. But the reason we give the CME the credit is because he ties it all together. In everything that he does, he takes ideas and he meshes them together and says, okay, how can we modify it? How can we do this better? On the A4, for example, he gave rough outlines of what he wanted, and it went through so many different iterations, so many different drawings, but Gresley was always pushing for, no, I want an era design, go and get the R101 specification, go and get the drawings, give me the aerofoil shape, give me the teardrop shape that I want. And because he pushed for that, we got this beautiful streamlined shape that actually, when it was tested at the National Physics Laboratory, say it quietly, it was actually better in a number of different ways than the Coronation locos. And although conventional wisdom would say you want the most bulbous front end and then you want to taper in at the back, when it comes to trains, when he was designing it to go with a streamlined train, the A4 was far superior.
And is the story about them having problems with the smoke lifting, and somebody made completely accidentally got a thumbprint in it, and they tested?
Eric Bannister, that was the.
Is that a true story?
Bannister, thumbprint back of the chimney, and then Frederick Hans goes, "Oh, maybe we should test that again." Then, what is that doing? And they tested it a few times, and it was lifting the smoke away, because actually the way they had the chimney originally was it was straight across into the boiler casing, very much like on the W1 and on the P2. When they realised that this indentation actually allowed the smoke to go up because it was creating a vortex. That's how we get the iconic A4 shape, and they raised the stovepipe chimney up higher. Brilliant, absolute genius. But as you say, and I love this, it's accidental.
So they had no inkling that they needed to do something like that. It was just purely somebody stuck their finger where they shouldn't have.
Well, let's be fair. The A4 was going to have deflectors. The reason that the A4 casing and the W1 casing is actually quite similar in certain ways, particularly if you look directly head on, you look at the positioning of the chimneys, is actually because they were intending to fit deflectors very much like the W1 onto the A4 Pacific. I'm very glad they didn't. The A4 is beautiful as it is, but it's also the most refined design. And that's not a surprise, because the W1 was the first. It was always going to have some issues, because one of them had to be first. And the P2s, well, the double car chap that lengths fitted properly north, smoke deflection was pretty much fine. But on El Marischal, which had piston valves, not as good. And when they realised that the A4 shape was better, they applied it to all of the P2.
So something I've always wondered about the A4s is how did they retain their streamlining into British Rail days when a lot of other streamlined locomotives became de-streamlined? What was it about the A4 design that they kept it?
I think it's multi-factored, Jen. I think it's, firstly, smoke deflection was a big deal. Secondly, the amount of horsepower they were using to power trains to high speeds significantly reduces with the streamlined casing. And everyone on the LNER knew this because they'd seen the statistics. They'd looked into everything that was going on. There was no way the A4s were going to be streamlined. The reason the Duchesses were streamlined, I think personally, is because they knew the casing's actually not very good. When you look at the different types of testing that the LMS and the LNER did alongside each other, Gresley very early on when developing the A4 saw a particular shape, realised how significant it was and picked it, and the LMS picked the more bulbous shape because it matched what was going on the continent. But on the continent and here, people were not thinking we need to streamline the locomotive and the train behind it, the whole thing. And what you actually ended up with was, for example, the German 05 streamlined train, carriages sort of streamlined, but they haven't actually designed them together, which I find extraordinary. Today you'd never have that. When you look at the Azuma, look at the LNR Azuma of modern day. I promise you this. Line up the A4 with the coronation set behind and the beaver tail. Now position it next to your LNR Azuma, and you'll be astonished at the amount of design cues that the Azuma has that are literally lifted from everything that Gresley did with the A4s and his streamlined trains.
So you can still see that heritage of the ground that he made back in the 20s and 30s, still very much at the forefront of the physics of making trains work now. Even though we've moved completely on from steam power, some of the work that he was doing with the streamlining is very much still at the cutting edge, literally.
Yes, agree. And I've just noticed a controversial question about Great Northern, and I'll very quickly answer it. No, Thompson did not rebuild Great Northern out of spite. It was next in works. It was very, very tired. It was knackered. Thompson's A1 was an excellent design. If it had, as had been intended, the A4 streamlining, no one would have been complaining at all, because everyone would have gone, this is a natural development of Gresley's designs. End of discussion.
And I guess that no CME would have had the luxury of being able to do things on a whim just out of spite. You know, they would have to account for every decision. I mean, locomotives are a very big capital expense, and you can't just scrap one on a whim as a spite thing against your predecessor. One of the things I wanted to ask is, how did Sir Nigel Gresley feel when they named one of the A4s after him? I mean,
well, I had the pleasure of talking to one of his surviving relatives, Ben Godfrey, about a month ago when I did a talk for the Gresley Society. And the pride in that particular locomotive, which was also the 100th Pacific built for the LNER. You can't put a measure on that. There's not just pride that he was proud of it. He was very grateful, because when you see the photograph, he was surrounded by all of these men who had worked alongside and helped him get to this point with the railway, and they were all loyal. They were all hardworking. And in that crowd of people, in that famous photograph, you have, again, Oliver Bulliard, Edward Thompson. You've got so many of the usual names and suspects that come up where Gresley's name is mentioned. I mean, it wasn't named just for him, though. It's not just a recognition of him. It's a recognition of everything he has done for the railway with his team. And that's why it was such a big deal.
And of course, you've also written the book on Edward Thompson, and he's the man who had to fill the shoes after Sir Nigel Gresley. And how difficult was that to follow on from somebody who'd been so pioneering as Gresley, especially because you had the double whammy that he was doing it during wartime, so there were huge restrictions on what they could and couldn't do. Budgets were very restrained. Being able to get hold of the materials were very restrained. And you're the foremost expertise now globally on Edward Thompson.
Kind.
It's true. I mean, you've written effectively the definitive book. But Edward Thompson sometimes gets a bit of a bad rap. But do you think that there's much more to that, in that he was very restricted, that if he'd have been a peacetime CME in a pre-war condition, he would have been able to shine very much more?
I think we need to be careful about speculation, because the reality was, without Gresley passing away, I don't think that Thompson would have been able to be CME anywhere else. Not because he was a bad engineer, not because he had a bad reputation, but because you had Bulliard on the Southern, you had Stanier, who was then replaced by Fairburn on the LMS, and then Ivert, because unfortunately Fairburn passed away well before his time. There weren't many opportunities to become a CME anywhere else. But I think really interestingly that much of the evidence has been telling me, that I've done over the last 10 years, that actually Gresley had in mind certain individuals that could take over from him, or needed to have the knowledge to support whoever took over from him.
And how
Thompson being one of them.
How difficult is it as well to? I wanted to touch on the subject of the research for this. Obviously, you've gone so much more in depth than has appeared in print before. How difficult is it this far on from the event? We're coming up on like 80 or more years since he passed away. How difficult is it to get down to the bottom of the truth? Because one of the things that I've found in research, and I'm sure that you've had the same, is that you get very much a sense of, oh, well, we've always thought this, therefore we're not open to a different point of view or different evidence coming to light. How much difficulty have you found trying to get to the bottom of it all, to get the perfect research for the books?
I have been very lucky because the London North Eastern Railway put pretty much every single bit of paper into a single archive, which is either in the National Rail Museum at York or the National Archives at Kew, right? And I live not far from Kew. I'm in West London. And there are many, many different individuals who have collections of their own and have collected research, including one Tim Hillier-Graves, who I would say, if your very kind thing about me being the authority on Thompson, I bow to Tim Hillier-Graves on that. I would say I might be the technical authority in terms of the statistics and similar, but Tim Hillier-Graves is the authority on Thompson's personal life, for sure. And I encourage everyone to go and find his book, and in fact his book's on Gresley, because we actually sort of complement each other. We have different aspects of the story. But how difficult was the research? I think the research was difficult in so much there was so much to go through. I have every single page from the LNER board minutes from 1923 through to 1948 and all of the LNER committee meetings that I took photographs of for my own private research in order to then write and think about all of these different books. And there's a huge amount of material. And it's not just those. You've got reports, you've got drawings, you've got photographs. The LNER made it incredibly easy for someone like me to go to all of these different places and go, oh, actually, here's a load of evidence. So let's talk about this evidence. And the thing that I found, and I'm going to be maybe a bit controversial here, the thing I found really appalling about some of the books that have been written previously in terms of LNER history, particularly where Thompson is concerned, but actually also about Gresley, is there's a huge lack of research of the primary evidence base and a desire to just focus on ultimate performance and timekeepers stats and not really talk about what the railway was actually supposed to be doing, which is carrying passengers and freight. I mean, the measure of a railway isn't how fast Mallard went in 1938. As wonderful as that achievement is, that's not the measure of how good a CME Sir Nigel Gresley or Edward Thompson or Arthur Peppercorn or whoever is. It's did their locomotives and rolling stock and did everything they do for the railway actually improve how the railway worked?
Yeah, in terms of
run to time.
Absolutely.
And did they do it efficiently?
Yeah, efficient. Cost in maintenance, the amount of fuel they use to do a given task. There's so much more than just the actual speed. And of course, people think of Mallard as, oh, it can do 126 miles an hour. I mean, it rather thrashed to do that.
Wow. I think thrashed, yes. I have a sneaking suspicion that you'll see it in the book.
Absolutely.
You'll see it in the finished version of the book.
And I must ask, where can people find this book and also your previous book on Edward Thompson as well? Where can they go out and buy it?
Right, it is Strathwood Publishing Limited. They sell all of my books, including the British Railway stories, for which there's 3 books in that series.
Oh, right.
The Gresley book isn't available for pre-order yet, but it will be. We're in the process of doing the print-ready copy, for which my nerves, I am jittery already, because there were some unfortunate errors in the Thompson book in terms of setting out and grammar that I wish we caught, but we are doing our best to make sure.
Can I just
Gresley
say,
book
as
is
a published author myself, it's what they call Gaiman's law. No matter how many times you read through it, how much proofreading you do, how many other people go through and proof it, when you finally think everything is perfect and you send it off and it gets printed, if you get the first copy back and you open it on any random page, you will find an error. And it's the law, I'm afraid. It happens. It happens
You're right.
to us all.
You're so right.
But I did want to talk a little bit about the Great British Railway stories. And that's, for a lot of people, that's where they know you from. How long ago was it that you did the first one?
We put out the first episode of the YouTube series of what was then the British Railway series, which I retitled as Stories because I didn't want to make too many comparisons to Audrey's work. But the first episode was in 2007.
Gosh.
And the last episode was in 2012.
So did the book come after the YouTube series, or did it appear alongside?
No, the YouTube series was first, based on books that I was writing and never published. So now what we're doing, quite funny actually this. So in 2013 I self-published Tale of the Unnamed Engine. That was the first book. Since then, I was found by Kevin Derrick at Stratford Publishing. He's been amazing. He's been the best editor. And we've since published the original book again, but as a hardback. Then Great Western Glory, which took about 10 years to write. And that came out just over a year ago now. And then last year we did the first of our YouTube story collections, which is based on everything that we did on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm really pleased to say we've got the second collection is actually being illustrated by Dean Walker again as we speak. That should be out by the end of the year. The Nigel Gresley book is coming out in the next couple of months.
Right.
So keep an eye out on the Stratford Publishing website. There will be a pre-order link shortly.
And also, of course, people may recognise you from our screens. You've been certainly, I mean, when I first met you up in Scotland, when we were filming Biggest Little Railway, that was my introduction to Simon A.C. Martin. And we since went on, we were both on the same team on the second series of Great Model Railway Challenge. So
and that was a great pity because I think we did really well on that show. And we don't always get the luck we wanted. But I was really proud of both the shows we made together, Jen.
Absolutely. And, I think, it's very easy to see a lot of stuff gets lost in the edit. And if you're not the team that wins a particular episode, then a lot of what you did is lost for time purposes. And I thought that we did a particularly good job when you consider you're building quite an epic model railway from scratch in 3 days, with the added distraction that you've got a camera crew buzzing around go, oh, could you just do that again? Or you're just about to drill something and they go, oh, sorry, quiet in the studio. And it's actually very difficult environment to do that. But are you Jen,
our War of the Worlds layout that we did with Les and the rest of the team, that's, for me, one of the highlights of my life. In terms of railway modelling, that was wonderful.
I thoroughly enjoyed building that, and it's something I always say that it was almost embarrassing. We were finished about a day early with that because everything hooked up, and it was a textbook example of when everything goes right and everything goes your way. And I must say I thoroughly enjoyed the experience of building that as well because we knew exactly what we were doing. We worked so well on that particular build as a team. And it was such a great experience. And I've always, when people have asked me, like, if you get the chance to be on a TV series, should you do it? I always say to them, yes, go for it. Because if you don't do it, you will regret the fact that you didn't do it. Because you'll see it on TV and it will look like a great wheeze. And you'll think, oh, I could have been there. And that was... I suppose nothing better to illustrate that than Biggest Little Railway. I mean, you know yourself, the midges, the rubbish catering, the damp, the cold.
Right. Can I just say on that, though, as I get older, the memories of how bad the midges were
Yeah, they fade.
seems to be disappearing from me.
And just the
until
good ones.
Lawrence shows me one photograph of me every year without fail. Lawrence Robbins, who's the team captain. He shows me this photograph of me looking so dejected, like horrendously dejected. And then Dick Strawbridge handing me this pint of beer and the smile that comes from being handed this pint of
But
beer.
I mean, it was a fabulous achievement,
Oh,
and no matter
yes.
how hard it was physically and mentally, I always look back at it and I always say to people, it doesn't matter how hard the experience was. You will always appreciate the fact that you did it. That you did something that you can point to and say, I was part of that.
Yes, I
And-
completely agree.
Do you have any other TV appearances in the horizon? Anything else you're working on?
I have been working on a lot of things, but they're mostly book related.
Right. Yeah.
I'm currently in the process of looking at my further education again. So watch this space. That's a really big deal for me because I really, I'm at a stage of my life where I want to be the best professional I can be. So I'm doing lots of different things in that way. A lot of my time is taken up with Network Rail now, working for Greater Anglia region. And frankly, I've not seen anything that I've been offered that I would like to do. But if the right offer came up, well, I'd have to ask the boss.
But of course, as well, I mean, your other hobby is your Volvo, your 740 Volvo, which did appear in one of the Great British Railway stories. You managed to get your car, your pride and joy into that book, and you now must be one of the few people who've actually got a Volvo 740. And I'm very jealous because my first car was a 740 GL Saloon. And I still regret to this day letting that car go. It was such a great car, and you've still got one.
Yeah, and it's just out there on the forecourt. I'm working on fixing the gearbox because it's always the gearbox.
It is
but
an
I'm hoping
auto
to get it
box. They
fixed for
like
the
that.
time.
But
It is the auto box, but it's it's always the torque converter. I don't know what it is about old Volvos, but the torque converter always goes out of kilter.
yeah, with
Every
the
50,000 miles.
well, with the manual box, mine was a manual, and it's always the synchromesh. Usually
Yes.
on third gear. I don't know why, but
Yeah.
third gear synchromesh always is the first to go.
That's like it was on my 240 as well, Jen.
Oh yeah, so where is that now? Because you literally saved that from a bush. It had been growing into a bush for God knows how long.
It's currently in store, and we'll see what the future holds for it. But the long-term plan is to get the 740 back out to car shows again.
Brilliant, and certainly one to look out for. I've seen the photos of you at the Festival of the Unexceptional, which
Exceptional,
is quite a peculiar concept until you realise there's so many familiar vehicles there which were once 2 a penny on the roads that you just don't see anymore. And it's so lovely to see
Yes.
that some people have kept things like Vauxhall Carltons and
Yes.
Volvo 740s and stuff. And it's quite shocking how few of these vehicles are actually left.
What I like that the concept will be really quick with this, but the Festival of the Unexceptional, for anyone who doesn't know, is a car show dedicated to all of the everyday cars you used to see on the road way back when. So 90s, 80s, 70s, and forward. And every year they bring it forward another year so you can get more cars into the show. But the other day I realised that I hadn't seen, for example, Mazda 323 for forever, or Vauxhall Cavalier, or any of these different cars.
Yeah.
And, shows like that, it really brings something back from your childhood or from, teenage years and adulthood. And it's really wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, things like a Mark I Ford car. When did you last see one of those? And yet they used to be everywhere. So what year are they up to with that now? What's the cut-off point?
God. I think the cut-off point is 2002 or 2003 now.
Oh,
so we're getting into more of the modern era. But I think they do it in a good way. I can't imagine, I know I'm going to get castigated for this, but I can never imagine seeing like today's modern minis as classics.
Yeah.
But the old new Mini is now a classic, and
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. But I'm very
okay.
mindful that you do need to go. It's 8 o'clock now, so
Yes, I apologise.
absolutely.
Jenny,
But look,
it's always so good to see you. Thank you
Absolutely.
so much for having me on the show.
you're absolutely welcome. It's been great to have a chat about your new book and some of your other projects as well. Always time for the Volvo 740 as well. And as always, you put me to shame. You're so impeccably dressed, so much so that we gave you the nickname Mr. Bond because
Well,
you were sort of like a cross between the Saint and James Bond.
oh, I like that comparison. I think I prefer the Saint comparison.
Well, he did
'Cause his
drive a
name was Simon
Volvo,
as well.
and he did drive a Volvo.
He did,
But look, anyway,
Jen,
look, thank you so
thank
much.
you so much.
Look, you take
And we
care.
must speak soon, okay?
Absolutely, will do. Look, it's great having you on. You take care, and I know you've got to shoot off. So,
And thanks to everyone who's been sending questions through.
Absolutely.
My apologies if I didn't answer your question. You're always free to put it through to my publisher. Okay.
absolutely, brilliant. Well, look, thank you so much. You take care and have yourself a great evening.
Thank you so much, Jen.
Take
See
care.
ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Right, so really great to have Simon A.C. Martin on. And certainly have worked with Simon on so many projects. It's great to see his latest book coming out on Sir Nigel Gresley, and this is an incredible in-depth piece. He sent me a pre-release PDF copy, and it really is a great and comprehensive read. So we're just getting the chat back up on the big screen. James Pett says, I approve of well-dressed guests. I bet you are. We were saying the other day, we can't imagine you in anything other than a suit. As a baby, did your parents have like very, very small suits made for you in the cot? I can't imagine you in anything other than a suit. But Rick Morley says, excellent interview. Thank you so much. Jennifer Horton, brilliant interview. Shaky Hands Shed Motherwell, he says, as a Saab man, I glazed over at the end there. Oh, no.
Don't glaze a Volvo.
But
That would
then
just make it all
again-
weird and sticky.
But then again, when did you last see a Saab 900? Again, another vehicle that used to be so commonplace. Where are they now? Jerry BVR says, always great to hear a genuine fan with a great depth of knowledge and passion for his topic. DJ K666 says, we had a Mark 1 Ford car. It died of rust. The old tin worm Fords were terrible for that. Ben Tullett says, great guest, Jenny. Absolutely. Simon A.C. Martin, great guy. If you ever get an opportunity to go and see one of the talks, he's been and done one at the MRC a couple of times now. Well worth going. 3B Rail says, great interview. Many thanks, Jenny and Simon.
That was a really good. I was actually watching it downstairs while I was working on your videos, and it was fascinating. Some of the depth of his knowledge is amazing.
Absolutely.
And I have to say, this is exactly what I was talking to you about when we started the Monday Club. Being able to do stuff like this, not just having the cameras all over the place, but being able to get people on as well. This is why I started doing the phone-ins. And while we're doing these Skype calls, this is what I want the show to be: a proper Monday Club where it's actually a club. People get to have their opinions as well. It's not just us talking, you know.
Absolutely.
So, guys, if you've got topics, I'm jumping in on before Jen can. If you've got topics and areas of expertise, I'd love to do more of this stuff.
I like. Sorry, Iron Horse Railway says James Petts does not have a body. He is but layers upon layers of fine apparel and dapper effect. Oh my. Just having a look. I think somebody said that they arrived late halfway through, but did enjoy the. Oh, here.
Topics.
A Monday clubber is never late, Toto Wagons, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
Thanks, Gandalf.
Thank you, Gandalf.
Sarah Davis says, just spotted your rainbow tanker. Where is it?
There.
Oh, right. It's actually on a war well. Not really the usual form of
No,
transportation.
but I did it as a response to what some people were saying.
We
in
couldn't believe how much it stirred up. We did the short video on it as it's an exclusive product being announced by Rails for delivery, I think, beginning of June. If you're looking to order the Nesk Rainbow container, beginning of June.
The camera. There you are.
So the thing about this is, what tickled me is that this is a model of a real world item. There's a real one of these. In fact, there's several real ones of these.
I believe one was in London, not London, Liverpool the other day.
There was actually one of these on display at the Eurovision Song Contest just outside in Liverpool. But these go all over the world, and part of the thinking of this is, it's about recognition of diversity. That we're not all cookie cutters of each other.
Yeah, like the United Colours of Benetton.
Yeah, but actually, there's nothing on there that says LGBT. It's just pretty colours. So anybody who the eye starts twitching, just think of it as all pretty colours. It's like a bag of Skittles. You look
It's a
in a bag.
rainbow.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
all it is.
You look in a bag of Skittles, and my immediate thought is,
Yeah,
not
as opposed to
as opposed to they're getting very political with it. So anyway, that's what that's all about.
And so people got really upset and said, oh, "You best not run it on the Monday Club."
Yeah. So we thought we would.
There you go.
What you'll find is that I am a founder member of the Awkward Sod Squad. So if you tell me you're not going to do this, it's like I find a way to.
And also,
TARDIS,
basically, My Railway, My Rules has to be in
we've got a T-shirt that says that.
has to be in effect.
Sarah Davis says TARDIS in the middle of the screen. Absolutely.
Yes, I forgot to move it.
So let's just save the Doctor's modesty by moving. So it just.
I am moved. Yeah, bye bye. There you go.
Iron Horse Railway says Daypole missed a trick not calling it the Big Cond Gainer. That's actually quite hard to say. Although it's not, it's being made by Daypole, but Dapole. We do have an interview waiting to go out where we finally get the lowdown on whether it's Dapole or Daypole.
Russell Benton says it's not political, it's just expensive.
Jennifer Horton says I have a Pride event on my model layout.
Yeah, why not? Your railway, your rules.
Absolutely. I just think it's quite nice and colourful. And if you're running a modern image layout, it's actually something very eye-catching to mix in with your Yang Ming, Costco, MSC, all the different things. And one of the things that actually, I don't do like modern image. Anything post-privatisation is not for me. But I really like the idea, and I've seen this done on some layouts, that instead of having a picture on your back scene or try and do a sky, if you can get enough containers, and a top tip for you, if you're going to put them up against the back scene, if you can neatly cut them in half, you can have 2 containers out of every single one.
Yeah.
And then you stack them up into a container stack. You can make your back scene out of containers. And it's a really interesting way. I've seen it done a couple of times with things like container terminals, where that's what your back scene is. A bit like if you're going to do the Vic Berry scrapyard, you could actually use old Mark 1 coaches or Class 25s bodies as your back scene. Now, I think it's a really interesting way of doing it. Rick Morley says, have you a wagon or a carriage with a squeak? It's sometimes coming through the sound. Yes. Somewhere there is a Bachmann Mark 1 with the obligatory Bachmann Mark 1 coach squeal. I have no idea which one it is. I have oiled them all, and I have listened very closely, and I cannot track it down.
This is what happens when you decide you don't want DCC anymore. You're going to have mice drive all of your carriages.
But what I will say about this is anybody who's got a substantial number of Bachmann Mark 1s will know full well about the Bachmann Mark 1 coach squeal. You don't know which one is doing it. One of them is, and I think they take it in turns. James Pett says, oh dear, we now have modern image. And this has been a big bugbear of mine, is that I think it's Railway Modeler coined the term modern image for effectively post-1968. The end of steam, everything was diesel and electric, and that's modern image. But that's before even I was born. I'm getting to be an old fogey, and that's still like 10, 11 years before I was born.
Well,
So I always take modern images to be post-privatisation. And I dare say that in 20 or 30 years' time, people will still refer to modern image, but pick another point that it refers to from.
can I just say, welcome to the problem historians have with the medieval period.
Yeah, medieval means modern.
Yeah.
Medieval is Old English for modern.
Yeah.
So it means the modern
The
age.
modern era.
So it's not just railway modellers. Historians have been labouring over this. Cameron Patterson said, "Good night all from Glasgow. Work tomorrow. Good night to you, Mr. Flymo and Mr. Hamshag. Good night to you. You take care and carry on the good work."
I like what Trains Kit suggests. Just call it contemporary modelling.
Rick Morley says, "Thanks, Jennifer Kirk. You're welcome." Walter White. Ooh. With his blue crystals, maybe. It says, hello to you. And we've got Skipsy Train. Says, "Good evening, Jenny. Good evening, Zoe. Good evening, everybody. I've been here in the background, but I've only just finished working, so I'm a bit late watching." Ooh!
And Monday Clubber is never late, Frodo Wagons, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
Thanks, Gandalf.
You're welcome.
Egg Rider says, "This week I have fitted 3 Hornby TXS sound decoders, 2 with Stay Alive. So far, very impressed, but as an Android user, I'm stuck with the default sounds." Now, I can tell you, can I just say that the beta testing is happening. I am aware that Hornby are going through extensive beta testing, so they've got a version of the Android app, and it's just basically they're ironing out some of the bugs. And I will get an update of when that is expected to be released, but I can't imagine it's more than a few weeks away, but don't quote me on that. Walter White says, "Hello," with no blue crystal, LOL. Russell Benton says, "The Backman squeal is, put up the price, put up the price." Ooh, controversial. Although what's interesting is that Hattons have actually bucked the trend with announced re-releases. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and
Of
fair
the
dues to Hattons
P-Class, Andrew Barclay, Warwells, ICI Hoppers, and the Biohack Snowplow, all at less than what they first originally came out with. And we debated this. It's not been officially stated, but basically the tooling has been paid off in the first batches. So they have chosen to pass on the savings. There's no longer a chunk of the price that's being charged that has to go towards the money that was outlaid on the tooling, because that has effectively all been paid for. And they have actually, kudos to them, chosen to pass the savings on to the modeler. And it's an interesting point as well that it does give us a little bit of an insight into how much of the RRP of a model is down to paying off the tooling costs, because I'm not being told that that's the specific reason, but I believe that that's probably the main reason. And it is interesting to see that actually it's quite a substantial amount of what you're paying on each model is going towards paying off that tooling. Tooling is not cheap.
No, it isn't.
And it's why actually I was quite impressed by we've got, and I will just pick one of these up at random, the all-new Acura Scale Siphon G. This is a model that I think it was Lima had out quite a while ago. I have a feeling, certainly if not 80s, then maybe even back to the 70s. And it was getting very long in the tooth. And the trouble with the Lima Siphon G was quite simply that one size fits all. What has really impressed me about the Acura Scale siphons is that the amount of different tooling options. So we've got different roofs. And they sent 3 review samples over. All 3 have different tooling options for the roof. I've got 2 different tooling options for the ends. All 3 are different on the sides. And all 3 have different arrangements in the brake gear underneath and the battery boxes and such like.
That's fantastic.
And I think that actually when I asked the question to Acura Scale, so how many different versions can you do? Whilst they couldn't immediately answer me because I think I caught them off guard, I think the honest answer is all of them. Basically,
That's brilliant.
and this is something that we're seeing increasingly with tooling suites. Whereas before we would have had tooling that represented one version of an item, and maybe at one point in its life, what we're now seeing is careful use of slides. We've looked at this in the day poll video where we toured the factory. We did go into the tool room and they showed us when manufacturers talk about having slides in the tooling, we actually found out what that means and how they change them. And what Accurascale have done with this, and also we've got the forthcoming J69, 68 and 67. And I was really impressed by this because by tooling up for all three of those, that means we get a ready-to-run model of a J67, a J68 and a J69. Rather than just picking one of those, probably something like the J69, and that's it, that's what you get. We would never see a J68 and a J67. And this does seem to be the Accurascale way, and I like it, I really do. But we've also seen from Hornby with things like the B17-6, they're not afraid of tooling up for different variants of a model. They've already got the regular B17. There's actually one on the turntable. If I go and just check that that's come up. On the turntable shot, we've got the B17 there from Hornby, one of the Sir Nigel Gresley designs around the turntable. Peter Jackson Cheadle, he says TARDIS on top of the far tunnel mouth.
Yeah.
Trains, Kits, etc. says, hope they do the outside framed siphon next. Some older variants would be nice. That would be interesting. I must ask them. Although if it hasn't been announced, I suspect that they're not going to tell me. Simon Trains Model Row Showcase says, J69. Nice. 69 dudes. Peter Joy says, I used to like the mainline Siphon G. And I have to say, this is something that, I think it's very easy to knock older models. But in their time, they were blooming marvellous. And, I remember the bad old days, the really bad old days of like the 1970s models with steamroller tyres, with one mechanism fits all. So literally Triang made one mechanism, 1060 mechanism. And the Ginty, the Pannier, the 4F, there's several other models as well, all used the same chassis. And models were actually fiddled to fit the standard chassis. We saw that with the 040 chassis, the Pocket Rockets, things like the Holden 101, the Smoky Joe. Also, we had the 06 shunter, later on the Bagnall shunter. All of these have the same chassis.
What's wrong with that?
Everything's wrong with that.
I know, that's why I said it.
James Petts, predictably, approves of Accurascale. James Wheeler says, I have an old Airfix Siphon G-Wagon from an exhibition a while ago. James Petts says, Lima was good for its day, but that day was in the 1980s. Yes, things do move on, and it's one of the things. I did an interview with, I think it was with Jack from Hattons quite a while ago. And it was actually when the P-Class was announced, and we actually visited Hattons. And one of the things we did was we had a sit-down interview. I think Les Cliff was there as well.
Yep.
We let him out from the Jabalite whittling dungeon. Ian White says, sorry I'm late.
A Monday clubber is never late, Toto Wagons, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
Thanks, Gandalf. So would you want to do the
no, you've broken it again.
But yeah, one of the things we talked about was how the advance of technology has allowed models to be made now that just could not have been made 5, 10, 20 years ago. And one of the things is the development of stuff like tampo printing, some of the inkjet printing we saw at Daypol with the UV reactive ink, where you print it like an inkjet printer, but then once it's exposed to UV light, it effectively sets. It's like the stuff that dentists use on your fillings these days, and they shine a UV light and it just sets. Dundee Road says, Jennifer Kirk, have I missed Simon? Unfortunately you have, but you can come back after the stream. It goes up as a regular video, and you can re-watch the interview.
Absolutely.
It was on from 7:15 through to 8 o'clock. Actually, it was quite a long chat.
Yeah.
And it went really quickly, which is always a good sign that it's very enjoyable chat and very, very informative as well. But also that implies you're late.
A Monday Clubber is never late, Frodo Wagons. No, sorry, these cakes are wonderful. He arrives precisely when he means to.
Oh my! Save me some cake.
You should have said that earlier.
Michael Lane says we should put that Sir Nigel Gresley A4 on the track. Well, we do have Miles Beaver going round, which is another one of the A4s, number 26, I think it is. Sir Nigel Gresley was number 7, 26 is Miles Beaver. It's just simply a case Miles Beaver was on the track. And what I did was, for the turntable shot, I changed up a lot of the locomotives for all of the different Gresley designed prototypes that are available ready to run that I have in my collection. So one example each of A3, A4, K3, we've got there V2, J39,
Space Station
B17 and J50. 1968 Concorde says, and Peter Jackson Cheadle Heath says, any videos tonight, Jenny? Yes, the
From
couple.
half past. I've got set up.
Has
From half
our
past.
connection been all right? I haven't been monitoring it, but I don't. There's no.
Seems just fine, yeah.
So maybe Virgin were listening last week and went, "Oh no, we're going to lose.
Don't rock the boat.
We're going to." Yeah, Russell Benton says, "Nice beaver." I think the line on that is, "Thanks, I just got it stuffed." As I bring a stuffed beaver down from the loft. Walter White says, got a Tractor 43 set and mallard and turntable from Hornby in 1979. Yeah, the A4 has been basically available, ready to run pretty consistently since 1938 in a 00 ready to run form. First of all, with Hornby 00, brief hiatus with the Second World War. You couldn't buy any toys until afterwards because of material rationing, and also factory at Binns Road turned over to war production. But then they picked up where they left off, and there's been an A4 in some form available all the way through to the present day. And in fact, I just bought Quicksilver 60015. It turned out to be quite a hard to get Hornby super detailed model. It's right on the cusp when they moved over to the super detailing model. So it lacks a couple of bits on the valve gear that the full fat ones have. But actually, really lovely model and never been actually issued before or after. And there's some of the A4s, I think it's a bit of an oversight of both Hornby and Bachmann, who also have a decent A4 in their catalogue, that they don't actually issue some of the A4s, and yet we have repeat issues of some of the others. I mean, Mallard and Sir Nigel Gresley, Bitton and Union of South Africa, I understand why they keep getting released over and over again. But Silver King, come on now. No Silver King since the demise of Hornby 00. Well, at least not in the BR green livery. We've had it in the original silver livery, but I'm banging the drum for it. I keep bugging people at Hornby. But we've also had the announcement of Simon Kohler's retirement. It's the second time he's retired. Don't imagine that he's going to just disappear off the scene. I think he's also going to be doing some consultancy work as well. But I have talked with Montana Huron at Hornby, and apparently Simon's role, some of that is passing to Montana and the rest of the Hornby team, but it sounds, as far as I can tell, and I've not had a definitive answer, I'm just sort of trying to read a bit between the lines, so don't quote me on this, but it seems that there's no specific one role that is going to be filled by a person to specifically replace Simon. His role will kind of be moved towards different team members rather than being the preserve of one person. It's also Frank Hornby's birthday today, 160 years. Peter Jackson Cheadle Heath reminds us. And Worthington Model Railway says, I bought the Hornby 4 set of silver A4s a few years ago. I've actually got, I think it's silver, it's either Quicksilver or Silver Link in the silver livery down there because I repaired one for Les. Thank you, Flymo Chairman 1, for sharing Chris Eden Green's channel. Definitely another great channel to watch. I must get him on actually at some point to interview. So Chris, if you're still watching, we need to sort out an interview like we did with Simon. Valleys56XX says, nope, I give up. Oh, what have I missed? 1968 Concord says, just picked up Sir Charles H. Newton in Waltime Black. Looks great. My late Nan's maiden name was Newton too. Interestingly enough, Charles H. Newton, whilst yes, it's been released several times in that austere Wartime Black, I don't think it's had a BR release. David Scott says, some great Hornby 3-rail I think that's meant to be A4s, were on display at Locomotion Shildon over the weekend. Yes! They had an exhibition there, and Hornby 00A4s had the original with valenced Sir Nigel Gresley in blue, with I think it's 4498. Later Sir Nigel Gresley in blue with the valences cut away as number 7. Then Silver King 60016 in BR Early Crest Green. And then later on, Mallard, which I think is 60022 in Late Crest Green, was the 3-rail release version when they updated the to a double chimney, and Golden Fleece 60030 was the 2-rail release. And again, whilst Mallard has been released, Golden Fleece is getting a release in that livery. Really am looking forward to that. Marin 49 says 60020 Guillemot with non-corridor tender. I've actually got that one, really great. And Chris Eden Green says yes we do. So we will sort that out because I think it's a great way of delving into some of the steam locos in profile that you've done. And I still, to this day, say the Manx one with the, I think it's Manx and Miniatures. I love that DVD. Both myself and the Cupboard Monkey sat down and watched that and really got quite engaged. And for me, it really opened my eyes to what preserved railway goodness there is on the Isle of Man. You know, I knew about the Snaefell Mountain Railway. I knew about the 3-foot gauge line. But some of the other stuff on there is like, I didn't know about that. That was very interesting. So I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I loved you making the chicken nuggets. Naive Gauge asks, what is the simple guide to adding YouTube chat to the OBS stream? I don't know. Cupboard Monkey's in charge of that. Tim Maslin asks, Jennifer, are you going to any model shows in June? I don't know. I don't plan that far ahead. I know I am doing the Great Electric Train Show because that has been organised, and a manufacturer has very kindly offered to get me to the Great Electric Train Show, so that has been organised and the hotel's booked. But other than that, I don't know. It's like when I went to the Keighley and Worth Valley Railway. I rocked up with less than 24 hours notice. Thank you, Flymo Chairman 1, sharing Chris Eden Green's website where you can go. You can find all of the DVDs, and certainly they are amazing quality productions. And the most recent one, the American ones, taking in a lot of the American preserved lines. Again, really, really interesting. Sarah Davis says, June is only next month, Jen. 2 weeks away. Hasn't this year gone quickly? James Pett says, model shows in June, the DEMU showcase in Sutton Coldfield. Walter White says, we need more steam. If I go to this angle, I think I'm going to have to give that camera a prod. So, let's see. We have found the workaround, which is good. James Pett says, only about 10 months at next Easter. Yes. Marin49 asks, do you have a low cab Gronk, Jen? I don't know. As far as I'm aware, nobody's done one ready to run. So, I mean, maybe that's something that... I know sometimes people say, when's the Curascale going to do an 08? maybe that could be the way in, doing the low roof Gronks, sports Gronks. But then again, I suspect if somebody's going to do that, it's more likely to be Hellion. They're already going for the Class 11 and the Class 12. Flymo Chairman 1 has also shared the Jenny in 3D. You put it down there as oboe scale, but actually you can get a mini Jenny, mini me in any scale from N gauge up to 1/12 if you really want a figurine of me. Certainly, we've really been enjoying some of the pictures and videos that people have been sharing with us of where they have put their very own mini-me in their model layout. Charlie Chimp says, hey Jen, you should do an interview with Pete Waterman at Making Tranks 3 in Chester in July. Yeah, I would need to arrange something, I guess. More likely I'd do another interview with him at the Great Electric Train Show. We did interview him, I think it was 2 years ago. Really great to actually stand and have a chat with him. We got it all on camera. That is available on the channel. James Petts approves of mini Jennies. Simon Train's Motherway Showcase says, we'll be at the Perth show on the 24th of June. Might be doing that half away because I'm planning to arrive by Caledonian Sleeper in a seat and not a bed. Well, then you're not doing the sleeper right. The whole point is you're supposed to sleep in a bed. Ian White says, we all want a Mega Gronk. Class 13, please. Yeah, that would be an interesting one as well, to do a Class 13. Will we ever see a Class 13 ready to run? I don't know, but then again, people would have said, probably not that long ago, that we were unlikely to ever see a Class 02 ready to run, and yet the Class 02 is on its way in both 00 and O gauge from Hellion. Valleys 56XX says, have I been restricted in some way? I can't post certain things. Not that I'm aware of. I can see that post. I don't know what you're trying to post. Web addresses you can't post unless you're an admin. So if you're trying to post web addresses, it won't let you. There may even be like a naughty word filter. I don't know. Yeah, Simon Trade's Mother Showcase says, I chose the cheap option. Well played, sir. Well played. So I'm going to sleep upright in this chair if it's the last thing I do. Yeah, my dad's from Yorkshire. Yeah, no, J. Paul Anderson says videos. Yes, I'm just waiting for the cupboard monkey to rock back up, to be honest with you. Walter White says, good luck and going on that in seats, not exactly Mark II coaching stock sleeping on racks.
Someone was asking something about the chat.
Yeah, right, I've had two questions. Valleys56XX says, just trying to post some information. Yeah, and Jerry BVR, YouTube sometimes blocks words it thinks are naughty, even if innocent. Scunthorpe, perhaps.
Oh, the Scunthorpe problem, yes.
Yes, because it contains a naughty word within it.
Yes.
But somebody asked about how you put the chat into OBS. I don't know.
Oh, it's, right. If you go into OBS, there is, give me a second. I'm not going to bring it up on screen, because that would be a bad thing. Because we'll end up with a howl around. But if you go into OBS, and in your sources list, press the plus button, and there's an option called Browser. You just click on that. Take the URL from your live stream, where if you go into the live streams area, the studio, you'll have a chat. Click on the pop-out button and use the URL for that. Put that into the browser thing on OBS. There's your thing. But then you use CSS. And you can find it all over the internet. You have to CSS, make background transparent OBS text. And it'll give you options, and then it makes it transparent. That's how we do it.
Gwen Reese Davies asks, it's just gone off the top. Question for everyone. Why is a Gronk called a Gronk? I do know the answer to this. It's to do with the sound that a Class 08 shunter makes when it's trundling along. When you see them shunting, if you ever get close enough to them to hear as they're sort of doing their thing, it sounds a bit like Gronk, 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 Gronk. And that's how they got their nickname, as far as I understand it. What truth there is in that, I don't know. I have actually, I did actually get to spend time at Old Oak Common and, what's the other depot in London? Where there's a high level and low level station where Virgin used to have their Class 47 fleet, was there when I actually happened to go there on business. But there was a Class 08 shunting there and I got to stand next to it as it was chugging along. And it does kind of make that that noise. There was another question. Where's it gone? Sarah Davies says, Thorpe isn't a naughty word. Neither is S a naughty letter. But the bit in between is what it flags up. Yeah.
So, we have some videos.
Right.
It's incredibly hot up here. My goodness.
It is, and it's going to get hotter. So, I think we're nearly through all of the water. I'm going to give you some of the joy.
The cooling factor. It cools.
It cools.
So this is from Tim's Model Railways and different videos. And what we've got here.
Oh, this looks nice. I'm just seeing.
It's a Class 43 HST Midland Pullman.
Llandudno. Is this Llandudno or Llandudno Junction? I like the semaphore singles. Right.
Here we go.
Okay.
It is.
Is that the right one?
Yeah.
Okay. I like the Pratt Truss gantry. You can get that in model form from Ratio. And interesting effect there with the grass on the platform. Actually quite neat with the flower beds.
Yeah, I like that.
That's actually something I've not really seen modelled, but it's some great ideas here. The blue Pullman, actually, it does really suit the HST and Mark III stock, it must be said. Trains, Kits, etc. says, how hot is it in there? It's kind of like a bit of a sauna. We do have an extractor fan up there. It used to be into Massey Ferguson, but now he just sucks air out. And we do have a water-based air cooler, but we have got a lot of equipment up here. The powerful computer that runs the live stream, all the cameras. We've got dual monitors, we've got lighting rigs, we've got LED lighting, and it must be said, the DCC Concepts Alpha Power and Box is chucking out a fair amount of warmth as well.
Yeah, so basically, it's... yeah.
It's like a studio. If you've ever been in a radio or TV studio, if the air conditioning breaks down, you soon know about it.
Yes.
But this is actually really quite nice. So
that is nice. Thank you for sending this in.
Walter White says Gronks, and you don't see any Gronks in stations. No, you don't. The railways have changed, not necessarily in a good way for the enthusiast. Secret Anorak says, are you a fan of the new Hornby steampunk models? I wasn't aware that there were new ones.
There were new ones?
Under the Bassett Loke brand, they brought out a whole load. But at the moment, I know Kernow Model Centre are shifting their warehouse stock. So you can get some good value pricing on it if you want to dabble in something like steampunk. It's certainly very different, very imaginative way of modelling. But I'm not aware of Hornby introducing any new items.
I didn't know they were doing any more. I actually liked the initial run. There was some interesting ideas there.
I liked what it was trying to achieve. Actually, Simon Train's Model Railway Showcase stole in a march and used it. Oh my god, this Model Railway layout looks so real!
It really did.
Yeah.
It was great. So next up, Jen, I think you'll like this. From Clive Cobbold, he says, hi Jenny and Zoe. It's my Stranraer Harbour part of my new layout. Stranraer Harbour part of my new layout.
Ooh.
With the rumps now in place. Okay.
With the Sea Link ferry, interestingly enough, were class 99 on tops. Although apparently we're ready to go to browse.
Yeah.
There we go. So there's Sea Link, very iconic
Look
livery.
at the size of the thing compared to some of those
well, yeah.
coaches as well.
Ships are big.
Yeah. I know they are, but when I'm making model ships, they never seem that big. And then you put it next to something else, like, whoa!
Shaky Hands Shed Model Railway says Hornby steampunk is dreadful. Looks like it was designed by someone just jumping on a bandwagon. I'm
not sure.
I think
designed by someone who likes steampunk.
I think the problem was that the way that Hornby made the models with the resin bodies didn't on the railroady chassis wasn't necessarily the best way they could have done it, but
Yes.
it was a nice idea exploring what happens if you just make pure creativity without freeing yourself from the restrictions of following prototypes.
Yeah.
And that is a really nice fairy, actually. Did he give us any detail? Is it a kit or scratch build?
I can't remember. I
'cause
think
that
he's
is-
mentioned that before when we've seen this. I do
It
like
is
it.
lovely. So let's make that nice and big. And
And
obviously,
the end opens. I love the way the ends
I
open
like
up on
it's
this thing.
got a hidden level underneath. Really good use of space.
Yes,
Russell Benton says, "Oh, that's nice."
it really is.
Harry Sedgwick says the Sea Link was a ferry company based in the United Kingdom from 1970 to 1984, operating services to France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Isle of Man, Channel Islands, Isle of Wight, and Ireland.
Can I just ask one thing?
What?
Are you seeing a big T with googly eyes on it?
I am now. Naive Gauge asks, can anyone offer advice on scratch building or kit bashing tunnel portals? Scale Scenes do some really quite great stuff that you can print out.
Interesting.
I tend to use the Pico ones an awful lot, and they're made of flexible plastic, and it is possible to very carefully cut and change them. Not aware of any kits per se. It's probably about as close as you get. Excuse me. Both Hornby with their Scaledale range and Bachmann with their Scenecraft range also do ready-to-use tunnel portals. The 009 ones from Bachmann are particularly good. I like that.
Yeah.
That signal gantry is really well
Whoops.
done. So, okay, that's fine. Oh, I'll go back then. So going back now.
That's the wrong button, you see.
Yes, you
Look
did.
at the stippling effect on the water.
That water
looks
does work really
amazing.
well. Jennifer Horton says, I do like the Sea Link ferry. You do need a lower class Corvette, which is a huge model. But
Okay, guys, sorry that...
told you she'd jinx the router,
Yeah.
says Jerry BVR. Wheel of Death, who jinxed it? That would be me, Ham Shackleton. Trains with Nick says, no!
So you were talking about an Airfix kit, and I kept telling you we're
Okay,
we're
the
offline.
Airfix kit of the Flower Class Corvette,
Right.
if you can find one, then that is also the right scale pretty much to use on your layout. But they are huge. I will warn you now. I think it's 176. It's either 176 or 172 that you can get some models of. And they are huge. You need a lot of space for accurately scaled boats. Worthington Model Railway says Woodland Scenics have a range of plasticast tunnel entrances which can be cut pretty easily. Yeah, you can also make your own if you want to go for a rough and ready, especially in a narrow gauge environment or an more industrial railway environment where essentially you can use the Woodland Scenics rock molds and adapt them to create a tunnel just cut into the rock. Also good, if you've got like a slate mine or a lead mine that you want to add as a feature, you can have tunnels going into the ground by doing it that way. Ian Turvey says, good evening all, got a bit held up packing for a holiday. Have I missed much? Well, just Gandalf, but now he knows, now you're on his radar.
A Monday clubber is never late, Toto Wagons, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
Thanks, Gandalf.
Thanks, Gandalf.
Now, Mark Wilson appears to have fired up the DeLorean, so I'm going to read this out. It says, thanks for the showcase of Newhall Road, but here I introduce Pentland Junction, a layout set somewhere at the very top of Scotland, somewhere between Thurso and the village of Ray. When complete, the single line working will have a short route, a long route, and a branch that will split into two. One spur will go to the buffers. The other will drop into the number 1 Fiddleyard exit point, so creating 4 potential routes, as well as run an in, out and back form. It will also feature a small loco stabling area as well. Some stock will be BR Blue era, but everything else will be modern. It will also be the new home for my Class 68. So, I don't know, is he firing up his time machine or just taking us on a tour of a real location that he's found? Whoa, actually, whoa! Stop the press. Mark Wilson is showing you how he works his magic. So, are we ready?
So
He's taking us behind the curtain here.
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen. So
No.
we're going to
Here
bring
we
that
go.
up. So this is Mark Wilson planning a scene. This is really quite interesting. He has never shown us how he works his magic. So is this Engage?
Looks like.
Interesting. I keep looking in the background for a glimpse of one of the things that we know so well from.
I think
from
this is a different room.
Yeah. So
this obviously has talking on it. So
So-
I'm going to put the link into the chat where he's known as Zantek.
Shaky Hands Shed Model Railways has corrected me. It was Matchbox made the 172 Flower Class Corvette. Airfix also did a 172 RAF launch. The only Airfix kit I'm fully aware of boat-wise is the motor torpedo boat, the Thornycroft motor torpedo boat. Not been in the range for a few years, but we actually
Just on
used
a little
one
bit so we can
with
see
the
it more.
War of the Worlds build that Simon A.C. Martin and I were part of the team that built. And it is available to look at. You can go and still see it at the Bolton Model Railway Society that's based in the Marketplace Shopping Centre in Bolton. So you can go and see it. Harry Sedgwick says it is Engage.
Yeah.
So this is really interesting. I'm interested to see how this develops.
Yeah, and I've put the link into the chat.
Yeah.
Basically, get in at the ground floor and watch this develop.
Yeah, because this is Mark Wilson, the modelling maestro. And it's like, this is the first time he's shown us behind the scenes. This is a
Yeah.
really interesting video, so
I think
yeah.
this is going to be well worth
How long
watching.
is this video?
It's
Does
like
it?
15 minutes.
So I'm just wondering, do we get a
Little glimpse of the area that he's already finished there.
so
Basically, he's explaining everything.
this is
and
one
that's-
to watch after the stream. But
It's already starting
this
to come
is really
together up here,
interesting.
Yeah.
Peter Jackson Cheadle Heath says, fantastic, Mark Wilson. He's never shown us behind the scenes before. I need to see like the Swindon erecting shop and such like behind the
I
scenes.
told you, he's not going to show you that because you'd have to take you back in time to where he's photoing the real thing.
There's only space for 2 in the DeLorean, although when Doc Brown had hold of it, he managed to squeeze 3 in, but it wasn't easy. Somebody
No.
had to sit with their back to the flux capacitor.
Yeah.
Mike King asks, does anybody know how far off the Cavalex models Class 56 is? Would like one but don't want it on pre-order forever. I believe that it is close. There's been production samples on display at shows over the last weekend. I can't remember which show, but there was one running on I think it was either an EM or a P4 layout showcasing the drop-in replacement wheel sets. But not far, I think, is the best way of describing it.
Simon Train says, is this Mark Wilson or is this Zantek? Well, Mark Wilson has sent me the link, but the channel says Zantek. I assume they're the same person.
I don't know. This is the link that Mark Wilkes.
Wilkes.
Sorry, we can't read.
Sorry.
So-
You said Wilson.
I accidentally read it as Mark Wilson. I do thoroughly apologise.
Mark
Wilkes. Which would be Zantek.
Yes. This is Zantek.
I thoroughly apologise. I misread it because it's actually a very small screen running 1024 by 768.
So Zantek, we apologise. It's definitely still worth getting in on the ground floor
Absolutely.
and subscribing.
I think it's an interesting layout
The
idea.
size of it, I was very interested in.
Yeah.
Given
So,
that it's Engage.
So really looking forward to seeing that develop. Thank you for sharing that out. JD1533 Workshop says, I'm checking out. Good night, everyone. Good night to you, and thank you for joining us. And of course, don't forget to tickle that like button if you've not already done so. And do please consider sharing this stream on social media like Facebook. It is a great way of helping everybody to know that the Monday Club, your online model railway club, is there for everyone. We do not discriminate. We are one happy family, and it's a great way to catch up with everything and get your your weekly dose of vitamin model train.
So this one I think you're going to enjoy.
Oh, is this Robert Steers sent this?
This is from Robert Steers.
So, Robert, there's been photos of this shared online, but Robert Steers has shared this because the Roker prototype models that his company makes do the base freight car that this is painted on, to the point where actually I would love to actually get the model center to do custom graffiti on one of those auto racks of that. I think that is just such a great.
I love that it's got the Zs as well.
It's so nicely done, and a lot of people. Graffiti can be something that divides opinion.
Yes.
But I think with stuff like this, we're not condoning it, but this is far better than the scrawly rubbish that you see.
Yeah, tagging is no good.
Yeah.
But proper art actually adds something.
But yeah, that is really quite interesting. I think CBS is the actual tag of the graffiti doer. Peter Jackson Cheadle Heath says that must have took some time to do.
Undoubtedly, yes.
Yeah, I think that's a case of rocking up in the freight yard the moment the train pulls in, knowing that you've got quite a bit of time before it rolls again. Trains, Kits, etc. says, if I were a railway company, I'd pay that guy to paint my real wagons. That's beautiful. I know the graffiti really does divide opinion. It's unfortunately a fact of life. But when you get the very artistic stuff like that, I think, if we're going to have graffiti turn up, I'd rather it be that than the nasty stuff, which is just a scrawl, by like kiddie scrawl.
So, next up we have from Charles Gibbs, as it says, Jenny, I've enclosed 5 photos with model people in. Do the model figures add or detract from the shots?
Okay.
What are the best to buy, as many just fail to blend in? What are your views on using model people on your railway?
I think they do add quite a lot. Just a big hello to the engine shed. Hello to you. I think there's a Gandalf moment.
Gandalf, does this count as being late?
A Monday clubber is never late, Toto Wagons, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
Thanks, Gandalf.
Gandalf, that doesn't actually answer my question.
Yes, it counts as late.
But I think these figures add to the scene. We've got the Hatton's P class there. We did talk a bit about that earlier. New batch coming through. And then we've got the Bachman Express Dairy Company English Eggs wagon. I must admit, that's one I keep looking at, and for some reason I don't actually have one. A lovely wagon.
That is great.
But yeah, they add something. I mean, the real world is not devoid of people.
And to be honest with you, the fact that they're static doesn't matter in a photo.
No.
It can look a bit weird in a video, but it does look great in a photo.
No. I mean, I'm looking around. The reason I'm looking around is there's probably about I think there's either 85 or 90 approximately people on Weir Yard. There are a lot of people, but it doesn't look crowded. I like that effect with almost like the the light halo on the camera lens. But I think they do add something. My personal opinion is so far, I think all of these do add to the scene. I like the fact you've got the driver figure in there.
Look at the steam coming out.
I know.
That's
you
great.
can do some great effects with cotton wool. James Pets, I like that. This evening's top pearls of wisdom: 1, ships are big. 2, the real world is not devoid of people.
Isn't it? Oh my goodness!
And that as well. We've got a scene. We've captured a moment in time.
Yes.
And I like it. It gives a sense of reality, of purpose, of happening. And I think, if you remove those people from that figure, it would seem empty.
Yeah.
So I like that. And
I agree.
One of the biggest areas of personnel is the military training facility here on Weir Yard, which we can't actually get in a shot, it must be said. It's in the very far background. I think actually...
If you tilt that up, you'll see it.
No, actually, if I go to this screen and you tilt that camera, so mind your eyes, it's going to get a bit wibbly wobbly. But there's the military establishment, the training facilities. A lot of people there. And that's probably the most populous part of Weir Yard. And I think there's probably about 25 to 30 people there. But yeah, I still think that they do add something to models. SHGP Media says, my eyes! And it's more likely you get travel sickness. Flymo Chairman 1 has posted a link to Ollie from Wardle Road in 3D by Model U 3D.
Can I just point out one thing? If you're watching in 3D, close your eyes at that last bit.
Don Gets Model Railway says, did it just get wibbly wobbly timey wimey?
Yes.
It did.
Diddle-a-dum, diddle-a-dum, diddle-a-dum.
Good call. Good call, Wayne. Let's do the Scooby-Doo ending.
Can I just say one thing?
No, you can't.
Okay.
Okay, what did you want to say?
One thing.
You little Miss Contrary. And Shaky Hands Shed Model Railways absolutely says, I love how much detail and variety resin printing is given to figures.
Yes.
Absolutely. Although trains, kits, etc. are keeping on theme with the ship's a big thing. The Mary Celeste, a big ship, but devoid of people. Yeah, I see what you
Nicely
did there.
done.
Nicely done. Yeah, legend.
Legend.
Can
I just say one other thing, Jen? You're 4 minutes off the end.
Okay. Valleys 56XX says locos without crew look very odd when moving, especially the open cab ones, like the Backman Quarry Hunslets do need a crew.
Ghost
Skipsy Trains has asked, are we very, very behind on videos by any chance?
Yeah.
Apparently we are.
Couple of weeks behind now.
Unfortunately, we are pretty bad
we get more videos every week than we can show, and as a result, we end up quite far behind. I don't like to leave any out, so
I think at some point we're going to have to. Oh, big hello to Graham. Graham Falston says, bye for now, folks. Great to see you, and congratulations on your 15,000 YouTube subscribers.
Congratulations.
And also your castle build, really, really good. If anybody wants to go and see that, particularly fine use of the Metcalfe castle kits. Really, really good build there.
I had a great lot of time. A great fun time even building mine. It was good.
Excellent. Russell Benton says, thanks for a great show, ladies. Good one. SHGP Media says, I just share mine to the Facebook group now rather than add to your backlog. I know, I understand, and certainly if you do want to show off your builds and pictures, the Facebook group is a great way to do that. That's exactly what it's for. Yeah, it's kind of why we set that up.
Yeah. Jen.
What?
Just checking you.
Have we got time for one more? Can we squeeze one more? And I'm conscious we got about it, so we're going to try and squeeze.
I closed everything down so that. Okay.
What, are you in a hurry to go somewhere?
Yeah, I've got a show at 10.
Well, it's not 10 yet. It's not even 9
I've got to
yet.
finish up video as well.
Chobberton Junction. Big hello to you. Great to see you. Always nice to see new names in the chat. Having arrived back to the craft after many years away, I am very excited about all the changes in 3D printing at home.
It's not Virgin.
What is it?
Us.
What have we done?
The computer gets overheated.
So are we at a point where we're actually, the computer is running hot?
Yeah, because it stopped completely on this when I was trying to pick up another video, and then came back.
Okay.
It's not Virgin, it's us.
Okay, well, let's have one more quick thingy. Gary B suggests, why not do a monthly live video-rama to catch up with the videos? Maybe that's something we can put on JK2. Have a catch-up session where we
do a live stream of
a live stream
Model Railway exhibition.
Yeah, and do maybe half an hour to an hour, and essentially work through the backlog. We could do that. Certainly something for the JK2 channel. If you haven't found the JK2 channel, I'm sure somebody will share a link in the chat, but we have a second YouTube channel where we like to put some of the stuff that's not
We
quite...
do love to put some stuff.
Yeah, not
Jen,
quite main chat. Right, anyway, come on.
Could you have a read of that?
So this is Andrew Johnson. It says, I was going through some of my old photographs. These are pictures taken during a model railway convention which took place about 2 decades ago now in Bloemfontein. Translation from Afrikaans to flower fountain or flower spring, pronounced Bloemfontein. That's what I said.
No, it isn't.
There are some random shots of some of the model railway layouts visited in a place called Sandstone Railway. Sandstone Railways is a farm on the border of South Africa and Lesotho. Anyway, come on, we're very short on time, so let's...
If you visit the Festiniog Railway in Wales, you would recognise some of the rolling stock. So here we go.
So this is where it came from. Okay, so final pictures. Ham Shackleton hasn't found JK2 yet. I'll let you share a link at some point.
Question from a tiny YouTuber. Why would you make a second channel? Because the YouTube algorithm will absolutely destroy your channel and stop pushing it to other people if you put out extra stuff regularly and then stop for a while.
And so essentially you will tie yourself in to having to put out 5, 6, 7 or more videos a week, and it becomes absolutely crucifying. But also there's stuff which might not necessarily gather the kind of like tens of thousands of views that the main channel would.
And that will also hurt you if you put it out.
Yeah, so the idea is to put out stuff which is perhaps a little bit more niche. We're going to look at doing live streaming us playing railway related games.
We're also doing Engage TT120 and
so a lot of Cupboard Monkey
kits
projects,
and things like that.
So that's
this is really interesting.
That's why we would put out the second channel.
Look at that sky.
That is nice. Anyway, next slide, please.
That is the last of them.
Oh, right.
That is great. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much for sharing that with us. I'm going to go back to the main...
I always love to see things from other places because it's so different. You get a different perspective on things.
So how far behind are we? When was that sent in? Have we got a date on?
Jen, I've closed it down.
Oh, well, look at you. Yeah, Leslie Gilpin Rowe says, missed putting a video out for a few days and viewing numbers dropped. Absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's really difficult to manage a YouTube channel. And the bigger you get, the more of a balancing act it is.
Yeah.
Because so much, it seems, can hurt the algorithm.
Just how it is, unfortunately. Right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are now past the time, and it's starting to... The computer's starting to overheat, and it's affecting the stream.
So we're going to call it a night. It's been great to have your company. Thank you so much for your company. We had Simon A.C. Martin, the acclaimed author of books about Edward Thompson, and Sir Nigel Gresley. It's coming out. Do keep an eye on the Strathclyde Publishing... Strathwood Publishing website for the release of this book on Sir Nigel Gresley. Very comprehensive look at probably one of the most famous CMEs alongside Sir William Stanier. I think if you asked anybody to name famous chief mechanical engineer of a railway, they would probably by and large pick either William Stanier or Sir Nigel Gresley. And it was great to chat with him, not just about that, but also about his love of Volvos, some of the TV projects we've been involved with together, and of course where it all began for him, his Great British Railway stories. Don't forget that you can also catch up with that if you missed any of the interview or want to watch it again. You can go back and re-watch that, and we may well at some point put out the complete interview as an extra special video. We'll just kind of cut it out of the live stream and put that up just for convenience. Maybe that's something that should end up on JK2. So look, just good night to all of you. It's been really great having your company, and thanks everybody who's sharing videos and pictures with us. Unfortunately, we do get so many. We're being drowned by our own success, but it is absolutely great. Don't forget to tickle that like button, share the stream to social media such as Facebook, and if you haven't already done so, do please consider hitting that subscribe button. You don't forget as well, we've got the merch store down there and the KR models produced for us William Loud and Sons PAL brick. They are still available. I got an update on the figures. We are so close to selling out.
Yeah,
but,
so if you want one, basically get in the next couple of weeks.
It won't be repeated. We will never do another PAL brick in the William Loud and Sons livery. Whilst William Loud had 3, we are only doing 1. So miss it, you miss out. But until next time, it's me, Jenny Kirk, saying take care, happy modelling, bye for now.
This is the 2105 service by Gandalf. I am joining in tonight in place of the usual announcer who has had to step out. This is the 2105 service down to Middle-earth, stopping at Bolton Trinity Road, Mineth Tatis, Tatis Newith, Eindhoven, over to Pittsburgh somehow, then back over to the unknown layout that Jenny won't put a title on. After that, we'll bypass via the War of the Worlds and finally get down to Middle-earth. That's the 2105 service to Middle-earth.
Hold on. What's that I can hear coming? It's a tumble of clowns. Oh, a straggler. Fly Mode Chairman 1 makes a very good point. Do we have a sponsor? Exclusive Monday Club William Loud and Sons PAL brick wagon is now available from Rails of Sheffield. Order yours now with confidence.
Ah, you picked one that didn't come up. Oh, there it is.
What are you doing to me?
If you go up to the loft today, you're sure of a big surprise. If you go up to the loft today, you'll never believe your eyes. For every train there ever was, let's gather there together because today's the day that Jenny does the Monday Club.
Simon Train's Model Railway Showcase, absolutely. Buy the PAL brick wagon or get a brick thrown through your window from William Loud and his boys.
You know it makes sense.
Don Gets Model Railway says, I was just about to say it was so refreshing not to have heard any clowns this week. And then there it was. Raymond Legg says, a Monday Clubber is never late, Frodo Wagons. He arrives precisely when he means to. Absolutely. So look, you guys, take great care of yourself. It's always an absolute honour to have your company every Monday. Sarah Davis asks, will the brick through my window be signed?
No, because then you can't tell who did it.
Yeah, you can't prove anything, but it will be wrapped in a flyer for Billy's replacement windows.
Yeah, but anyone could have put that there.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.